Hi, everyone. I'm Sunny.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Rox. And this is
Literature on the Rocks.
How we doing?
Hey. How's everyone? I'm great.
Yeah, so good.
Super good.
We're going to Paso.
Hey,
Paso Robles.
girls trip.
Yes, we're getting ready for a girls' trip to Paso Robles.
We skipped girls trip last year because of moi,
I think so a lot. Rocks.
but we could do 2 this year because it's early. If you want.
Twist my arm. Did have some wineries say that they wanted to partner with us.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we have any that are available the weekend we're there. So a lot of them were like, let me know another time or come back next year.
Oh.
I'm so excited. We've got.
Did we look up any Michelins?
There are some.
There have been a lot of places that were suggested to me, a lot of wineries that were suggested to me, but I know there are tasting kitchens in the downtown kind of area. The tastings is similar to what Solvang had, right? They're just all next to
Just
each other.
little rooms we can go into and drink and walk and drink and walk.
There's some beautiful wineries that they recommended, but they were like, they are a drive. It's like Temecula at
Yeah.
that point, right?
Yeah.
Where you're driving through.
To
So it
each
depends
one.
on what you want to do. All right. Well, let's get into Great Big Beautiful Life. Rox, why don't you hit us with a
Author bio.
Great.
So Emily Henry is a #1 New York Times bestselling author whose name has become pretty much known for smart, emotional, and wildly addictive fictions. She lives in Ohio, though her imagination lives rent-free on the coast because I feel like that's where all of her things take place. She's
The coast? I thought they
on
were
the
in the
coast.
Midwest.
They're
Close
usually
to a coast.
yeah, Midwest. I think they are.
Oh, but they're like
usually
lakeside
beachy,
or
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And she's known for her unorthodox writing style, so she refuses to sit in chairs while she works. She writes standing up and pacing like she's solving a mystery. She's inspired by everything from classic literature to messy family dynamics to pop culture moments. She's sold over 10 million books and somehow still manages to write stories that feel like they were made just for you.
So many of her books are getting turned into movies right now.
I bet.
yeah.
Like the last 5 books she's written are all in production. All right, hit us with a summary.
Henry. The summary is Great Big Beautiful Life is an emotionally rich novel about legacy, identity, and the many forms that love can take. The story follows Margaret Ives, who was born into one of America's most famous families. After years of carefully avoiding the spotlight and distancing herself from her last name, it's set against a backdrop of opulence, dysfunction, and long buried secrets. The novel explores what it means to carry a name that comes with both privilege and pain. While there's a romantic thread, the heart of this book beats around complicated family ties, personal reinvention, and the healing that can only come from finally facing the past.
That was nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. I did have a couple behind the scenes about the book.
Okay.
The inspiration for this book came from a real life heiress. She drew inspiration from Margaret Ives from the real life figures like Rebecca Harkness, famously referenced in Taylor Swift's The Last Great American Dynasty. Said that she was fascinated by the idea of a woman whose life was both celebrated and scrutinized by the public, which is what being a celebrity is really.
Yeah. Especially being young and growing into the spotlight.
Yes, exactly. And then she also mentioned that the novel was initially conceived as an exploration of mother-daughter relationships.
Yes.
The theme is intricately woven into the narrative, obviously highlighting how the family bonds and expectations can influence personal identity and choices. So I thought that was kind of cool. Cool little tidbits about the book.
That was. I liked it.
Samesies. Let's talk about this cocktail.
Yes, let's do it.
So we are calling this cocktail the Beautiful Spark. It's a take on the classic Tom Collins, but we're bringing it with a modern twist to marry Margaret and Alice and Hayden. So the ingredients are 1 ounce of gin, 3/4 ounce fresh lemon juice, 1/2 ounce lavender blueberry syrup, and then we're topping it with grapefruit soda or squirt, garnished with a grapefruit twist.
Let's try.
Yeah.
Ooh, that is fresh.
Oh yeah.
I like this one.
Yeah.
There's been like a handful of drinks that we've had that have been really good, and this is probably like top 3.
I could drink this all summer, like all day long.
summer long.
On the summer.
This is our summer cocktail. And it was easy.
Funny Story was a summer cocktail too.
We put in that we wanted it to be a classic cocktail with a modern twist. We wanted it to be bubbly and light. This hits all those notes.
That's good.
I like it. Ooh.
I don't know if I've ever had a Tom Collins.
I don't think I have either.
Years ago, I used to drink them.
Oh.
In your youth?
Yeah, in my youth.
Back in my day, I used to
That's what
drink
it
Tom
sounded like.
Collins all the time.
It was my drink of choice.
when I was in my 20s.
I really love to live into the fact that I'm the youngest of the three. So
I know you do.
By months.
By months.
Let's deep dive this shiz. So we start with Alice Scott. She's an aspiring biographer. She travels to Georgia Island to interview for her dream job, writing the life story of reclusive socialite Margaret Ives, who vanished from the public eye 20 years ago. At Margaret's home, Alice meets Jody. So she disappeared from the public 20 years ago, but she lived as a recluse, so she wasn't doing anything. She was still in the public eye maybe, but she wasn't doing anything.
People knew about her, but she wasn't going
30
out
years.
and going to movie premieres
Yes.
and being a socialite for
yeah,
30
she
years.
talks about how she vanished. And
Oh,
then
yes.
went
and
about.
then she was trying to keep...
No, then she like went somewhere and nobody acknowledged her, and she was like, "Oh, okay, maybe they've forgotten about me." And so then she spent the next 30 years sort of just like living a normal life.
Which she tried to disappear a few times,
And
but
they kept
someone
following
kept finding her.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So at Margaret's home, Alice meets Jody. Jody's the one who answers the door, and she's a cryptic figure who seems to act as assistant or gatekeeper. Can't figure out quite their relationship. Is
Yeah,
it
I think at one
is
point
she a
I thought that
friend? Is
she
the
was her
help? Is
like
she-
I
lover.
thought
is what
that
I
too,
thought.
like a younger
Yes.
lover.
Yeah.
Like who is this woman?
Have you guys read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hughes?
No, but I've
No.
heard about it.
Gave me these vibes. Soon after, Pulitzer Prize winning author Hayden Anderson arrives, also vying for the job. So she goes through this interview with Margaret. She goes into a lot of detail about how she wants it to be Margaret's story, and that's what's hopefully going to get her the job. She doesn't know that she's going up against anybody. She thinks it's just her. She found Margaret through a ton of research. And then as she's about to leave, Hayden Anderson shows up. She knows Hayden because he is well-known writer.
Yeah, he was a music journalist who did a really famous autobiography on,
Someone else.
a musician who was at the end of his life suffering from Alzheimer's.
Yes. And he wanted to get his story on paper. And it's like a beautifully well-written book. And so it automatically Alice is a little bit intimidated, but she's ambitious, but she's also
Kind of realistic.
positive.
Yeah.
She's a positive
She's
person.
super positive.
Super
Yeah.
positive.
I like Alice.
I do too.
Anxious, Alice heads to dinner, but then she bumps into Hayden while she's at dinner. She tries to break the ice with a bright blue fishbowl drink, but he's cold and distant. So she goes to one of the only few restaurants in the area that's open, and the captain,
Cecil.
is like, get her a fishbowl. Captain Cecil sends her a fishbowl that's massive. It's like this massive blue sugary
It made
alcoholic
me think
beverage.
of the drinks at what's that? Sugar something?
Sugar Factory.
Sugar Factory, and they have the big fishbowl drinks. That
Yeah, like the
Okay.
ones you have like all the
Yes.
multiple straws in, and
Yes,
then share them.
that's
You
what I
don't
thought
drink it
of.
by yourself, but he sent her over one.
Like, have
drink by
yourself a
yourself.
night, girlfriend.
Yeah, girl. Get you
Welcome
some.
to the island.
It's blue. It's a bright blue, but she sends him over one as kind of like a haha, so funny. But he's pretty hard-hearted.
He's like very cold.
He is.
Yeah, and he doesn't. And he's like, "You're here, standing at my table.
Like, why are you talking to me?
Hi,
Yes.
goodbye."
Yeah. Why are you talking to me? We're vying for the same job. Anyway, so then the next morning, Alice mistakenly grabs Hayden's coffee, which is very much so small town vibes, a lot of this.
Yes.
You run into everyone all over the place. So she takes a drink and she's like, what kind of nasty, healthy bullshit is
Oh,
this?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So they swap drinks as Hayden gets a call from Margaret, and Alice soon receives her own call. Jody invites her to a precisely timed dinner. Alice shows up with flowers and wine, but Jody tells her, oh, Margaret hates
Cut
yeah.
flowers.
cut flowers. It upsets her. They seem sad.
They remind her of a funeral or something.
Yeah, so she redirects the bouquet to Jody, but gives the wine to Margaret. Margaret proposes a 1-month trial period. Both authors will stay on the island, all expenses paid, before she makes her choice.
And they're kind of pissed about it.
Yeah, she's like, I guess this is the world's longest interview.
Yeah. So I'm doing the work, but then might not get the job.
Yeah, and they both have to basically write her story.
Or a proposal on what the story will look like and how they want to.
Yeah, it's not a perfect
represent
final
it.
draft, but it's
yeah.
like they're going through her story, how she's telling it,
They're
and they have to
interviewing
kind
her.
of show her this is how I would write it and what I would write.
Yeah.
I have a quick note
Okay.
because when we did Emily Henry's other book,
Animal references.
Oh yeah.
yes, I have. There's only a handful
Okay.
in this book, but I started highlighting them. And this one's not like crazy. It's just a hawk-nosed man. This is about Hayden sitting at the restaurant. It says he gives the impression of a bear at a tea party.
Oh.
Because he's
He's all-
gigantic and with tiny little glasses.
With the tiny little glasses and his pinkies up.
And a unicycle.
Alice hasn't told many people about the gig, including her mom. She doesn't know. Like, she thinks that this is something her mom would be proud of, but so she doesn't want to get her mom's hopes up. She and Hayden awkwardly try to coordinate a schedule for interviewing Margaret and tiptoe around how he tracked her down despite her alias.
He never wants to talk about anything to do with Margaret.
Yeah. Which
Well, he doesn't want it to like
that.
influence their work or like get something from each other. And now I gave you a tidbit that's going to give you the job.
Well, and they signed NDAs,
Yes,
right? So they
yes.
have
They're not
technically
allowed
they're
to
not
tell each
allowed
other.
to tell each other some of the
Yes.
stuff.
Right.
So he's like, don't talk to me about it.
I'm going to make you guys sign an NDA for my life.
Too late. We're very
I was like,
publicly talking about our life.
we are public figures
here
now.
on
Any
out.
listener that subscribes also has to sign an NDA.
You'll find them in your emails.
So it turns out they're hotel neighbors. They're like down the hall from each other in the same hotel. Alice explores the town. She bonds with locals like Captain Cecil and leaves a tea and croissant at Hayden's door.
Because she's so fucking nice.
She's so
Yeah.
nice. I would love to work with someone like her. Someone bring me
Are we not like Alice?
Are we
You
not
work with
fucking
us?
nice?
You know what? None of you brought me a croissant or a tea this morning.
First of all,
I offered you.
What? Oh, one of your hash browns?
I
It's
said
true.
take some. I didn't offer one.
Tiny little. She's like, you can have a half a bite of my little tiny round hash brown. No,
I
she
offered you
didn't.
hash browns.
She did. As she leaves her hotel room, she sees that there's an untouched drink.
Like he
and
left it
croissant,
there.
like he left it there outside the door. It triggers anxiety tied to past trauma involving her sister.
I thought the sister died.
yeah.
But
But she does talk about how she's still alive and she's fine now. I don't
yeah,
remember what it
thriving.
Yeah, she does.
Yes. So she bangs on Hayden's door and he doesn't answer. She's like, oh, I'm sure he's in there. I'll just knock on the door really
Talk
quick.
about
And then he doesn't
jumping to
answer.
conclusions, though.
Well, she dropped it off in the morning. So she went out, was cute in the morning, got herself a little coffee, and then dropped his little gift off, went to her room.
She already knows he runs in the morning and then he
Right.
goes to the coffee place to pick up his stuff.
So after his run, he would have seen the stuff. So she went to her room, got showered, got ready for the day, and then left, presumably an hour at least later, and the drink and thing are still there. So she just like panics, like, what if he fell in the room or hit his head? And what if he needs my help? What if he had a heart attack?
Yes. So I do think she goes to 0 to 100 pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But I can also understand having an expectation of, I think I know this person, at least their morning routine. I've seen it. And now it's not what's happening. But he does open the door to her.
In a
And he's-
towel.
Yeah. He was like in the shower and he's like, I just opened the door to a random tea and croissant
I'm
from
not gonna
someone I
eat
didn't
it.
know.
Yeah, and I was like,
why is this outside my door?
warranted.
Yes.
I probably would have pulled it in and I wouldn't have eaten it.
I don't
would have
think
brought it in.
I
and
would have
just
trashed
sat
it.
it down
Yeah, I
like
probably
on
would
the
have trashed
thing
it.
and whatever. I wouldn't have eaten it. So when he said that, I was like, makes
Yeah,
sense.
true.
Yeah.
I don't eat food from strangers. You
And
try
like,
to drug
there
me?
was no note on the cup, like,
Yeah.
enjoy
Nothing.
your morning, Alice.
Yes.
Nothing. Just
Yeah.
like,
And she
That's
now
where
comes to
I'm
the
not
city
getting
like,
date
oh.
raped tonight.
Yeah, exactly. That's where
Garbage.
she went wrong. She should have left a note that said,
And
hope
I
you
think
enjoy.
she kind of realizes, like, oh, you're right. Yeah, that was not the poor thinking on my part. You're right. Yes.
Yes.
He's not going to open the door and be like, oh, Alice, you strike again.
I am in a completely different place where
Yeah.
I don't live and don't know the people. And yeah, I'm going to take a stranger's food.
And it kind of leads to their first genuine conversation. So that
Yeah.
night, there are fire alarms that go off, which again sends Alice into a panic, thinking her sister is in danger. Outside, she's harassed by a drunk man, and then Hayden comes to her rescue. They end up having breakfast and bonding over shared black sheep status in their families. She's a writer who writes about gossip, and he is not a politician. Yes.
He's not a buttoned-up politician like his father and their family.
Yes. Alice's first interview with Margaret centers on her admiration for Cosmo, Margaret's late husband. They connect emotionally.
Yeah, because Alice has a very personal relationship with their story, Margaret Ives and Cosmo
And his music.
and his music. It's personal connection to her because it's so tied to her and her family.
Yeah, and Alice is ready to jump in. She's excited to hear
Yeah.
Margaret's story, but Margaret
she
kind
knows
of
only the
pumps the
social
brake.
side.
Yes, she kind of pumps the brakes, and she's like, "If you want the whole story, I need to tell you my whole family history for my like great grandfather's
Back in
life.
1733, we don't
Yes.
start.
Yeah, so she goes back into her Ives family lore where we talk about Lawrence Ives. He's a ruthless tycoon and he may have murdered his business partner. He grew up poor. He lost a brother in the woods and he had a bunch of family, I think.
Yeah.
He was
Feels
one
like
of the,
it was a bigger
yeah, he's
family.
one
Yeah.
of 10
yeah,
kids.
a
in the
lot
day.
of kids. And there's so many that like people died and it was
Yeah.
almost, he kind of of comes to a realization, this Lawrence Ives, that clearly my parents didn't care that much about my brother passing away because they kind of just moved on with their lives. But they had 10 freaking kids and they were just trying to work. They're poor.
Yeah.
I'm not justifying not caring about your family. I feel like that's how it sounded. No, but they just had to keep moving.
Whatever we do, we just got to keep going. 'cause,
Life, this
yes,
sucks, but life is happening and we have to keep trying to trudge along.
which is life.
Yes. But also he obviously lost his brother. He was really struggled with it. And then driven by fear and hunger, he struck it rich mining silver in Nevada, betraying his partner Thomas along the way. He kind of
was, like,
manipulated
greedy.
him out of it. Margaret reveals the founding of Ives Media. It stemmed from a newspaper Thomas hired to write about that betrayal. It was almost like he had all this money. People were writing stuff about him. So he just bought the newspaper to
And then he could
stop it.
Well, then he could direct the narrative,
And then
right?
he got to, yes, exactly.
That would be amazing.
Right? To just, I'm going to.
I will tell the world what I want them to know
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I own this media company.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The only records are from Lawrence's journals, later passed Margaret's sister, Laura. A detail about the first family hotel name doesn't match up. She's kind of fact-checking some of the stuff. Alice is back. She's fact-checking some of the stuff, the stories. She was recording all of her. There's a couple instances where she stops recording to give Margaret space to talk, and we don't have to record it. It can just be
Yeah.
between me and you, and we'll figure out how to fit it in a way that you're okay later. Yeah. But yeah, so one of the things, and it's clear that Margaret was almost hesitant to tell her part of it and even to say this family name, but it doesn't match up, making Alice suspicious. She confides in Theo, which is like her lover, kind of.
He's just like a weird fling.
Like she's really into him, but he doesn't really seem to into her, and she's trying to pretend like I don't really care, but he does.
Like we talk, but we sleep together, and that's really kind of
I think
the
she
extent
wants
of it.
more, but
She
she
does.
knows he's not willing to give
She
more.
also said something like, it's really great to have someone who is really laxed and not committal until you're waiting for a text back from them.
Yes.
Yeah, like she likes it, but wishes he was a little more aggressive.
And he doesn't initiate anything
Nothing.
with her.
Yeah.
I would.
Which if my daughter told me that that was the case,
I would be
I'd
like, that sounds like
let
a
him
fucking
loser.
cut him loose.
Seriously.
Why? Why are
Move
you wasting your
on.
time?
You're worth so much more.
Yes.
He should be the one doing that. At dinner, Hayden invites Alice to join him. They discuss Margaret, but when Alice suggests Margaret might be lying, it sets Hayden off. They can't fathom why Margaret would lie after all this time.
Like, why even invite us here
Yeah, if you're
gonna
gonna lie
tell
to
us a
us.
fake story?
Yes. Alice reveals more about her sister's serious medical history. She's had 14 heart surgeries as a child, and her free-spirited parents, ending the night with deeper understanding between her and Hayden.
Yeah, they have like a little bonding moment, and they
Yes.
genuinely don't talk about Margaret, and they just
It's like one of their
kind of
rules.
learn.
We're not going to talk about Margaret.
Yes.
It's Hayden's rule.
Yeah.
They learn
She's
about
like, okay.
each other.
Yes.
They do, and they have
Similar backgrounds.
Yeah,
They become close pretty quickly in this book, I think.
they do.
Yeah, but I
Yes.
feel like
It
you're
genuinely
it makes
close.
sense.
Yeah.
When you're in a place where you don't know anybody, and
Right.
the only person you know is this other person.
And you're spending almost like some time almost daily with them.
And that's
In
kind of what
a
I meant by
similar
genuinely.
place.
Like,
Yeah.
it didn't feel
Forced.
forced or fake or not realistic. It
Yeah.
was like, yeah, you guys are both going through this circumstance, this thing that's happening.
And you only have each
and
other
you
to-
only have each other
Yes.
to kind of be friends with.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it made sense.
We jump into chapters 10 through 16. So after dinner, Hayden walks Alice home. She asks how many of his past flings were under 5'3". Oh, because the whole time he's tall.
He's
Yeah.
very tall.
He's very tall. He's over 6 foot, and she's not a small girl either.
She's tall, yeah.
And so whenever they sit in these booths at these diners together,
don't fit.
their knees are bonking on each other, and they have to like figure out and
Yes.
do some maneuvering to sit
Yeah,
comfortably.
she's kind of like, I understand why short girls are.
Well, she talks about it's like evolution. Like
Yes.
it makes sense that
Yeah.
they do
Tall
it
guys are
because
just
they fit
attracted
better
to.
together.
Yes.
And it's, I was like, actually, that kind of makes sense because
Yeah.
I do only know a lot of tall people that have very short significant others.
yes.
So as they're leaving the diner, she asks him, like, oh, now that we're friends, like, how many girls have you dated that are under 5'3"? And he's like, I'm not going to answer you.
She's like, it's a I'm doing some research kind
Yeah.
of situation.
And so when they finally get back to her house, he finally answers and he's like, just one. And the tension is very thick. And she's like, you want to come in?
There's like an attraction from the very beginning.
Yeah.
But they try not to.
I really like Alice.
Me
'Cause
too.
She's like, do you want to come in? I'm like, that's right, girl. You get yours. Like, she's like, I know what I want. And
You're being
It's
too
not
easy,
even like-
Alice.
it's
No.
not even like, no, I didn't feel like she was being too easy. She was just like, I got this asshole Theo, but he's not
She's like,
really
He's in the
in.
day.
Yeah.
I
and
have a
she's-
note that's like,
she's just
Alice.
moving with her emotions.
Yeah. My note says Alice is a delight.
She is.
she invites him in and he declines, but he's like, no, I'm not going to come in, but I am single.
I did think he was very respectful in
He
how
was.
he handles all of this.
But
because she's aggressive and he's like,
He is, but then
he gives in and then he's like, oh, my bad.
which I have a problem with. But
Okay.
we'll get so she starts to speak and he like silences her with his finger on her
I
mouth.
just picture like her lip just like dragging. as
yeah. And then he kisses her.
Yeah.
And while they're kissing, Alice is like, come inside. Like, whispering in his mouth. And so he stops and he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I can't sleep with someone whose dream job I might take.
Yeah.
Again,
Warranted, I feel like.
I feel like it was a respectable thing.
Yes.
Right? Like I'm
This is a complicated
not
dynamic.
someone who just sleeps with people, right?
Yes.
I know you want to, but
Yeah.
I'm enjoying your company. We have a whole nother month to go.
Yeah.
But he didn't say those things.
Yeah, but
He
I
just
think
said
it,
we're
like, I
going
feel
for
like-
the same job. I don't
think it
wanna
was
fuck
kind
you.
of implied in that. I thought it was respectful. I
Yes,
thought it was
I
like, you
felt
know
like he
what?
was a
I crossed a
gentleman.
boundary. My bad. We have this
Not
job
like
that we're going.
He
on.
wasn't like, I'm so sorry. I know you didn't want that. It
Yeah.
was more so,
I want it too.
I want it, but we have this whole month ahead of us and we just need to,
Slow it down.
yeah.
How much
And I
more
was okay with
complicated
it.
would it have been if they had slept together on the first week?
But
So-
I did make a note that it felt like the kiss happened way faster.
It did
and
feel
I kind
fast.
of appreciated it because sometimes you wait so long for this slow burn, and it was still a slow burn. But you were like, "Ooh, I get a
But
little
we're only in,
sprinkling
like,
of
the first
chapter
couple
10."
yeah, it was
Like, chapter
good.
10. I was like, "Cool."
It was just the right
We're
amount
getting into this
of
story.
paprika.
Yes,
It's not a
Yes.
spice.
Yeah, it's not spicy, but it adds a little heat.
yeah.
There's no heat in paprika. It's bell
little bit.
peppers.
It adds a little flavor.
Okay, we can say flavor.
Okay.
I'll give you
Okay.
flavor. So she avoids Hayden all week, and on Tuesday she visits Margaret, who's hammering away in her workshop, and Alice starts to record them. So Lawrence left to start a new family with Amelia Lowe, a railroad heiress. Their son, Gerald, who is Margaret's grandfather, is said to have shaped Margaret's entire life. And then it jumps into the story again, them, which is like the media at large. Like this is their version when it says them.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Them, Gerald founded modern journalism, failed as a politician, and abandoned his family. So then Margaret's story is that Gerald grew up in his sister Gigi's shadow. He was ignored by his father, fueled by rage. He made his name by dominating California news. So his dad was like, you're 18 now. Here's a newspaper. Figure it out. And out of spite, because that was like
It was like a failing newspaper, and he was kind of like, "Here, you can have this
Go make a
trash.
name for yourself."
Go do something."
Yeah. And out of spite for his dad ignoring him, he blew up that newspaper. He started buying some of his dad's other newspapers.
Yes,
And
he did a great job.
yeah.
Killed it.
He killed it in. And so he was like, you know what? I'm going to go take this model and I'm going to go to New York and I'm going to fuck up their news scene too.
Yeah.
So he goes to New York and he has a harsh reality that it's not working. They're not letting him in. They don't trust him. So he makes friends with this senator and ends up kind of arranging a marriage with his daughter, Rosalind. She views it as a business, and so does he. So they get married. After a few years, it turns romantic.
Yeah.
They start to fall in love with each other. They realize like they're both driven. She uses his money for philanthropic things, and he uses her and her dad's connections to be a politician and snag up some news.
This is her grandfather, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
He was successful in politics and tried to make a bid for presidency twice, but he failed. Then Lawrence dies. And after Lawrence dies, Gerald just abandons his family and moves to LA. He
he's
leaves
a
his
real
wife
It's like
and
he
his
has
two kids.
like a life crisis.
Right.
And he has all this pent up anger for his dad, and I think he just
Yeah.
doesn't know how to deal with it. And so he just leaves all he
Leaves
knows.
But
Knows
what's
California.
crazy is that he was making it a point with his kids, like to be involved and to be a present dad because he didn't want them to feel how he felt with his dad. But then he just up and leaves.
Yes.
I think he had a genuine crisis. He didn't
Yeah.
even know what to do with himself at that point.
He just had a breakdown.
Not that it's okay.
I mean, I don't
but
think, it's not justified in any way. He's definitely a jerk, but he has 2 kids and a wife at home. And it's not like he got divorced.
No,
he
he just left.
Yeah.
So then he falls for this aspiring actress, Nina. He's like, I'm going to help make you a star, baby girl.
Yes, and he kind of does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes a while, but
He
Yes.
buys a media production company
Yeah.
and makes her the star and then uses his newspapers to promote her.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Which also just makes me think like
The media rules
isn't
all.
that not business?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
buy one to support the other. Like if you have the money to do that,
And it's
it makes
not
sense.
also what you know. It's usually who you know.
Yes. And so
And who you sleep with.
Exactly. Exactly.
Nina falls ill with a mystery illness.
She disappears.
She disappears to go get treatment for her mystery illness. Nobody knows what it is.
Some other country. And they even talk about how she clearly looks
Sick.
Yeah, she's not herself.
So back to the present, Theo texts Alice about being in Atlanta, which is not far from where she is. She invites him to meet on Saturday. So she goes and interviews Margaret, who reveals Nina fell in love with her doctor during her illness. Gerald later returned to his family, including a now pregnant Gigi, who is his sister, and doted on his niece until his grandkids, Margaret and Laura, were born. So Margaret cancels Saturday, and Alice bumps into Cecil, who invites her to his birthday party on Saturday night. And she runs
Cecil is such a vibe.
He really is.
He is. At
Yeah.
Saturday night at the party, which Hayden obviously didn't know it was a party. He's just walking into the one restaurant
In the little
town.
island.
She expects Theo to arrive there too. He's supposed to meet at the restaurant, but he calls, so she steps outside to answer the phone call, and he's not coming. And then she realizes, heartbroken about it, like, again, I let this douche fuck
And
with my emotions.
I told Hayden that I had a date, and now I look like a fool because I don't have a date.
Yeah, and
he's here.
And my purse is back inside with Hayden, and I have to walk back in
Yes.
and tell him I don't have a date.
Yeah.
It just felt like a moment where she's being aggressive and telling him, just come down and see me. And then she gets freaking
Sidelined.
sidelined.
So she goes back in. Hayden apologizes. Margaret had reached out to him first, and he felt guilty for kissing Alice without her knowing. He has the advantage. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning author, and Margaret reached out to him first.
Meaning, like, not reached out to him first, but he didn't reach out to Margaret. Margaret reached out to him.
Yeah, Alice found her
Yes.
and reached out. So it's almost like deflating her sails a little
Yes.
bit.
Yeah. So she's crying.
Which again, like, I appreciate that. He felt like I was taking advantage of you a little bit. You don't know the whole story. And if you did, maybe you wouldn't want to kiss me. And I need to pump the brakes to tell you all the things so that you go into this not blindsided.
Yeah.
Alice is crying. She tells Hayden she's going to kiss him, and they do. And then they agree not to take things further. And Hayden says Margaret is lying to him too. He finally gives up a little bit. So Alice digs into Gerald's niece's wedding and finds a link to the Nicolette Hotel. And on Tuesday, she asks Margaret about the Nicolette Hotel because that's the hotel that she didn't give
The real name.
the real name to, or the last name. It was
forget
weird.
what she
the
called
way
She
the
didn't call it
hotel.
Nicolette. It
No.
was
No.
at one point called the Nicolette.
It was called the Nicolette when the Ives owned it. And then when they
Yes.
sold it, the new owners changed it to something else. And that's the name.
She was like, why didn't you just call it the Nicolette? And then now she's got this link.
Yeah. So Ruth was actually the daughter of Gerald and Nina, which was Gigi's supposed daughter, the niece. She died in a plane crash before learning the truth.
Gerald and Nina being the other woman that he was in California with and her secret illness.
Yes.
She went overseas and had a baby.
Had a baby. Yeah.
And
they
then,
they
yes.
didn't, they thought 9 months was too predictable.
Obvious.
So she
Too
was
on
gone
the
for
nose.
2 years. And then
Yes. I think Gigi came like, hey. And then Nicolette was the one who passed away in the.
her name was Ruth, but her middle name that they called her, it wasn't her real middle name, it was
Right.
Nicolette.
Right.
Thursday, Alice can't sleep. She leaves Hayden a green tea with her number, and Margaret takes Alice out on her boat and talks about her father, Frederick Ives. He used humiliation as a form of betting because he had everything. He grew up with millions of dollars, so when he would make bets with people, it was to do like the loser has to stick their head in shit, like
Yeah.
or muck out the stables or whatever.
Yeah.
So he was just kind of a playboy dicking around. And Gerald, who was her grandpa and Frederick's father, forced his kids, he had a daughter and a son, and he forces them to work or I'm cutting you off.
Right.
So he gives him a movie studio and he kind of just,
I wish my dad would give me a movie studio.
right? He just kind
Run
of
this.
slacks off because he doesn't know what he's doing. And the sister is given a failing women's magazine. It was originally a scare tactic, like, oh, you want to work? No, you really want to be married and sit on your ass. And she puts in the work and kicks ass and does a great job.
kills
And
it, yeah.
she's a business bitch. So then it jumps into the story again, and the media's view of Frederick was that he was a jealous man. Margaret's story is that Frederick craved what he couldn't have. He failed at the studio and spiraled, and then Doris Bernhardt storms into his office, takes his chair, and quits. And she's a female
She's a female director, yeah.
who
There's
has done
times when the females are not like strong and they're
right, but she is strong and she makes good movies.
Yeah, she does.
Yes.
And she is pissed off about her offer to continue working with the studio. Back into the
Oh,
present.
yeah, because they like lowball her.
Back into the present. Margaret says Doris was amazing and left Freddie because he didn't love himself. Margaret worries her legacy will be reduced to headlines. So Freddie and Doris end up getting together. They end up making like a really nice friendship. He realizes like, I'm in love with you, Doris. Like, I only want to talk to you. I only want to spend time with you. The way he grew up, he doesn't know how to love her in a way that can be reciprocated. So they end up not being together.
They still are best of friends. They still call each other every day.
They have weekly phone calls and they walk together.
Yeah.
So they're still good friends. Back in her rental, Alice, now that she's like, okay, I got this month of doing stuff. I'm not living in a hotel room. I'm getting a furnished rental. So she's back at her rental. She gets a text from Hayden inviting her to dinner. He rises to greet her and she hugs him and he's all stiff. But they share a quiet meal, avoiding talking about Margaret.
So now we jump into chapters.
We jump in.
We jump into chapters 17 to 23. Hayden and Alice are walking around Savannah, and Hayden recounts his fears about having kids and the world he would bring them into. The convo ends in a very intimate hug, and they clearly want more, but walk it off. This is where you start to see their tension growing and rising. And I feel that his openness about how he feels about having kids and how he feels about what he can contribute to their life was very vulnerable and very
honest.
real and honest, especially to tell somebody that you maybe only have known for like 2 weeks. So Friday at the beach, Alice texts her mom, sister, and late dad in a group chat. So it's like the group chat has been there forever. Her dad passes and they just never took her dad out of it. So she's like, one day somebody's going to take his number and they're going to be like, no, wrong person.
Yeah,
but until
like,
then, we're just going to keep it going like he's still here. She then listens to Margaret's story of her parents, Doris and Frederick. They become best friends, having weekly walks and calls 3 times a week. After 11 months, Freddie asks her to marry him. When asked why, he said, "You're my favorite person in the world." So they do get married, and Doris becomes a fixture in the house of Ives. The day Margaret was born, her name was leaked to the press. 3 years later, Laura was born, and when the girls were 5 and 2, Doris wanted to go back to work. She did, but she was working long hours, and that was when the fighting started. The recording ends, and Alice is really missing her dad. Just as she texts his old number, "Thank you," Hayden texts to ask her plans for the night. Hayden and Alice try another because he's like specifically tries different diners where he goes places, and he rates them and compares them, and that's kind of his thing. And she thinks it's really funny because she's like, "You eat unhealthy food."
He eats so healthy even when he goes to these diners.
Yeah, he's like, "I have an egg white omelet and some grilled veggies."
She's like, "You're at a diner."
She's got this like stack of pancakes.
Corned beef hash.
Yeah.
Chicken fried steak.
Biscuits and gravy.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Hayden
gets,
orders oats, and Alice gets biscuits and gravy and a short stack of pancakes.
Hell yeah.
Hayden is in awe by the way Alice sees the world. She's such a positive person. She doesn't see the negative in things. I can resonate with that. I feel like I do that a lot. After dinner, Alice drives them to the beach, and while walking to the sand, a snake slithers across the path, and Hayden like has a full-on panic attack.
Screams like a little girl.
He's terrified of snakes. And it's funny because you see these small moments of just softness, I guess, out of Hayden, because you think
he's like hard and has this hard exterior, and then he's like, "Eek, a snake!"
Yes.
And he like makes his whole thing like, "You're not even wearing pants. Your whole ankles are exposed."
Yes. So he's terrified of the snake. Alice coaxes him to keep walking, but he scoops her up and carries her to the water's edge because she's like, "Just keep going. It's fine."
He's like, the snake's gonna get your ankles.
He's like, "No, I can't." So he like picks her up. He's like, "I gotta protect your legs."
But he like runs away with her in his arms.
I just picture the gigantic guy tiptoeing away. And so they get to the water's edge and they sit and touch and try to talk. She like kind of snuggles up into his chest.
They're like spooning basically.
Yeah.
On the sand.
Because he's got like his arms around her,
There's
which is
sand everywhere.
That's all I can think about.
There's no blanket.
No. Hayden starts touching Alice. She's in front of him, right? So he kind of like starts touching her a little bit, and he asks her out for the next night. She says she can't because she's driving to go see her mom, but she just invites him to come along. And
what I think
he's
is
like,
crazy.
He's like, "You want me to meet your mom?" And she's like, "Not like that. Like I bring people to my parents' house all the time. Like just come with me."
My
your
mom
friend
loves to host.
Yeah. She says it's not really a lie, but also she's kind of grateful to have a little bit of a buffer between her and her mom.
Yes.
And so he eventually says, "All right, fine, I'll go." Okay, so then we jump into the story, the Ives story, and they first start with the media, them. What it must be like to be raised in a castle. Margaret's story. Margaret lists all of the different ways her life was larger than life. Riding riding in a helicopter to the hospital after breaking her arm, hand feeding her peacocks. She paints a picture of a very happy, outrageous childhood, loving parents, fun family adventures. Then it changes as her parents start to fight and scream. Just the dynamic starts to change.
Yeah.
She has this larger than life, but then there's some skeletons in the closet that start to happen.
It all happens when mom goes back to work.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is probably a power struggle, right? Her dad
He doesn't want
her to be working, but she's a boss lady and she wants to work. She wants to contribute. She wants to have this life. So there's this power struggle of being a mom, but also contributing to the family. So slowly they start to get a nanny and they see their parents less and less. And Margaret starts to feel lonely. Her mom wanted it all, career, family, and her dad just wanted to love her mom. They reconcile after Doris's movie premiere. While he wasn't her husband, he was still her fan because they had a genuine relationship built on friendship.
Yeah.
So they could still do that, which really made me think that, God forbid, if my husband and I ever separated, I would hope that we could still maintain a friendship for our kids.
Yeah.
Right? That would be ideal. And so it's kind of...
And they do, yeah.
It's just very mature of them to be able to do that. When Margaret was 15, her mom remarried to Ray, and at 16, her dad remarried. So eventually her parents go off and remarry. And then again at 21...
Her dad
He's
keeps
just
getting
moving-
remarried
yeah,
over and over and over
when
again.
she's 16, he gets married, and then when she turns 21, he gets remarried again. And Margaret and Laura loved Ray, and he loved them. Freddie passes away a few years later, and then Ray also passes away. And at his funeral, once all had left but Doris and Margaret, Doris wept on Freddie's headstone. It was really sad. Hayden and Alice drive
Because she almost couldn't truly mourn the loss of Freddie.
Yeah.
Because she was married to Ray.
But it was her best friend.
It was her best friend and her first husband that
Yeah,
she did
and-
truly love.
Yes.
It just didn't work.
Yeah.
And so when Ray finally was gone, I think she was able to truly mourn Freddie.
Yeah. So Hayden and Alice drive to the Scott house. And when they arrive, Hayden is stunned by how beautiful Alice's mom is. I mean, he's like really taken aback by how pretty she is. Alice shows Hayden to his room, which is her sister's old room, and then shares her childhood room with him. He abruptly hugs her and they decide to go for a walk.
Kind of talking about life as a child,
Yeah.
right?
And like all the funky stuff in her room and how she wanted like this neon quilt and it was so ugly, but her
Yes.
mom made it for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of funny too because you think about this is the place you grew up. This is where you became who you are. And so when you take somebody back to that space, you're really showing them a piece of you that doesn't get seen much anymore because one, you don't live there.
Right.
You're
Yeah,
not
you're a
gonna
full-grown
talk.
adult now.
Yes. So it is such a private space to be involved in. On the walk, Alice confesses to herself that she is falling in love with him. She realizes that this isn't just a friend. I do have true feelings for him.
Yeah.
Dinner was pleasant, and they talk about Alice's parents and how they met. In a moment of remembrance, Alice touches her mom because she's having a moment of like a sad memory of something. Exactly
She's
what
reminiscing about
on.
her dad or her late
And she
husband.
sort of like gets a little emotional. And so Alice goes to like touch her mom as like a comfort, and her mom pulls away. And
I think she's trying to keep it together. And if you touch me, I'm gonna fall apart.
yeah,
And
but
so
I
she,
think Alice takes it as
But because
you
they have
don't
such
love
a tense
me,
relationship.
and you don't want me to touch you, so you're recoiling from me,
Yeah.
not just the emotion of what's
Yes.
happening. So she, again, just this like dual story, which is
Yeah.
very significant of the entire book itself. There's two
Right.
stories to everything, right?
Yeah, right.
Unable to sleep that night, Hayden, because he doesn't sleep. That's his thing. He doesn't sleep often. She knows that. And Alice find each other outside, and they cuddle on a bench and fall asleep. And all I could think about was how uncomfortable my back would be broken
right?
if I fell asleep
same.
on a bench outside.
with another person.
Yes, and
Like
we're
all of
both
that.
gigantic.
Garden
how
bench.
do we even fit on this bench? First of all,
Did we even lay down? We're just asleep, sitting up, leaning on each
and
other.
my neck is all cricked, trying to
neck,
lay on your shoulder.
yeah.
Yes. And they leave after lunch that day, and Alice is visibly upset about how things went with her mom. They have like an exchange, and it really just rubs her the wrong way.
That's
Where-
when the moment comes.
Yes.
Yes.
When she says, I think she loves me because I'm her daughter, but I've never felt sure she loves me because I'm me. And I thought, man, that's such a major thing to say. Like, that's a big statement. And
How hurt would your mom feel if she really heard that? Because
Yeah.
is that really true?
yes.
I don't know. It made me think about how I would never want my kids to
To feel
feel
that
that way.
way.
Yeah.
Yes.
that I love them for who they are, regardless of what they do.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I do think it's easy to get into the day to day of just you're my son or you're my daughter, and that's why we love each other. But
Because we're family and we have to kind of thing.
yes, which I feel like we say sometimes all the time. Like, not that I feel like I love my mom because she's my mom and that's it, but I can understand almost that feeling. I think that's why it was so impactful. It was like, oh, yeah, no, they're real people.
Yeah.
Oh,
With
yeah.
real emotions that are potentially most likely different than mine, and
100%.
learning to love either my mom or my son or whatever because they are who they are is almost something you have to remind yourself sometimes.
So then when Hayden pushes her to talk more about her mom, she explodes on him and blames him. And they sort of sit in silence for the rest of the ride. And when he gets out of the car, he says goodbye and not good night because she really pushes the boundary on what she says about him.
She lights his ass up.
Yeah.
Puts all her anger from her mom onto him.
Yes. Well, and she's kind of mad at him for pressing her. Like, why are you pushing me on this when you've got your own shit to deal with, essentially? And so he gets hurt by what she says. And so he says goodbye. Like, I'm probably not going to see you again because obviously we're just not vibing. So then we jump back to the Ives story.
So she has a consistent group text with her
friends.
friends
Yes.
at work.
Yeah.
And I have noticed that Emily writes some funny shit that makes me
does.
laugh.
Yes.
But in the text, it's a group text. One of the friends is an editor and the other ones are the writers.
Yeah.
So one of the
It's their
writers,
boss.
one of the writers is like, my editor is breathing down my ass right now on a profile. And then the boss writes back and was like, I have never and will never breathe down your ass.
It is a funny dynamic to have with your coworkers, but also like close friends, essentially.
Yeah, that's so funny.
So then we jump into the Ives story, and she first says the media's POV is Margaret loves the camera, and Margaret's POV is Margaret loves attention. So not wrong. Laura was the opposite. She loved all of it until her 16th birthday. Ruth was taking a plane to be at the party, but it crashed, and there was no survivors. Margaret changed after the crash. Gerald did too, becoming a shell of a man that he was. It was just very heavy for their family, and people were grieving.
Because she was like,
She was
the
the
light.
loved. Yeah. She talks about what it represented, and I don't know if we say it, but it.
Oh, Nicolette? What
The name Nicolette, what it
Oh,
represented.
yes. It's the person that you would do anything for.
Yeah.
Anything. So soon after, Gerald has a stroke. Laura eventually became his full-time caregiver. Margaret stayed away because she wanted a big life, and Laura was afraid of the press. One day, Margaret came up with a plan to get her sister outside when Cosmo Sinclair was scheduled to play in town. So she was trying to get her out of the house. She was a caregiver. She was just kind of immersed in this responsibility, and Margaret wanted her to live life a little. So she was going to take her out to this concert. Yeah, because they loved Cosmo's music.
Laura
Laura
loved Cosmo Sinclair.
Yes.
Yes. And so she's like, he's going to play in town. I'm going to take you to this concert. We're going to have the night of our lives.
Yes.
And so then we jump back to present day. There's a big storm coming in this Georgia island town.
Oh, yeah.
They have to hunker down in their rentals. They're like, she calls the rental company to put some boards up on the windows. And she grew up in Georgia. So she's going through her mental checklist of like, okay, this is all the things I got to do because I've been through this all my life, but forgets to charge her phone. And she realizes like, oh, that was a major point on my checklist. And I totally forgot to do that. And her phone dies.
Dead, yeah.
So she hears
What
bang.
a time to have a dead phone,
Seriously.
man.
Oh my God.
So she is sitting there, the power goes out and she has no phone. And so she's kind of lighting a lantern or something. And she's sitting in the house and she hears banging on the door and it's Hayden. And the storm is like in full swing right now. And
She's
so
like,
she
"What are you
like throws
doing?"
the door open and he like falls in because the wind is blowing. And she's like, what are you doing here? He apologizes. They apologize to each other. They realize that they kind of were both in the wrong. He ran over there because he was worried about her since no one had got on hold of her. Everybody been trying to call her. She didn't realize her phone was dead for like forever. And he kisses her deeply and they kind of just have this like sweet moment and they're two little giddy kids smiling from ear to ear. And that is where my chumpy ends.
So then we get into chapters 24 through 29. Hayden and Alice kiss heavily and slowly strip. Alice admits she wants him.
Oh yeah, this is the heatness during the storm.
Oh yeah, they're getting hot in the storm.
And this isn't enough.
There's no power. There's no TV. They got nothing better to do. This
I
is how
need
babies
more
are
than
born.
just a kiss, Hayden. So Hayden pauses and says if in 1.5 weeks she still feels this way, they will go further.
So they're like 3.5 weeks in, or two and a half.
He's really got some self-control.
Yeah, he does.
Seriously. I'd be like, it's in my hand already.
Because in some parts it is.
Yes, for sure. This is, I mean, at one point it's in their mouths. What more?
Here is when it gets a little
In the
more
mouth?
intimate.
In the mouth.
In a whisper,
I was trying
Hayden
to be.
says, if I get this job, you're going to break my heart,
Yeah.
which is sad.
And I really thought that was another vulnerable moment. Like,
Yes.
But another vulnerable moment. He tells her, like, he's
know when.
essentially admitting how much he likes her.
Yeah.
Like, he's just saying, like, I really like you. And if we do this and you don't want to be here, it's going to break my
Yes.
heart. Like, I'm going to genuinely be hurt.
Yeah.
And I
I'm
think
not,
she brushes right over that. I would have been like, oh, you really like me.
But she
Right.
doesn't know why he's so staunch about
Right.
not going any further.
Yes.
She doesn't know what it means to him yet.
it's going to break his heart. He's telling her right here.
No, I know, but why it means so much. Like not like to wait until someone's chosen.
Right. So Hayden says he wants to be with her all of the time. This isn't just about sex. Alice understands it's more, and she feels it too. She offers to make him a snack.
Like, that's great. I totally get it. You want a sandwich?
You want a PB&J? Oh, and bananas. PB and bananas.
Yes.
Yeah.
They ride out the storm eating their banana PB sandwich. And Hayden says he will bow out to let Alice have the job. But Alice tells him not to. It's unforgivable if you do it.
Oh, yeah.
She wants to know that she won it. She earned it.
Yeah.
Early
She's like,
the next
that's something I won't forgive you for.
Yeah. Early the next morning, the storm is over. Hayden kisses her before leaving, both agreeing to see each other tonight.
Oh, because it's his turn to go interview Margaret that morning.
Now we're back meeting Margaret. The story that the media has told is in 1958, Gerald died while his granddaughters were partying. The story that Margaret tells is that Margaret set up a plan to take Laura to Cosmo's concert. They would don wigs, off-the-rack dresses, and be driven off the property, hidden in the bed of the landscaper's truck so that they didn't get recognized and could just have a quiet night out at Cosmo's concert. Grabbing a quick dinner, then a cab to the theater, the girls were excited going there.
They were really close sisters.
They
They had
were.
a very close relationship, and this was a big night for them.
Yes. They both jumped and screamed as Cosmo started to perform. Margaret was entranced by him. He put on this really great, amazing show, and
They
he was a
fangirling the shit out of themselves.
yes. They were having the time of their lives. And then the crowd shifted and started to stampede. Like it went from a fun time to scary.
Yeah.
Laura was pulled under and Margaret was hit in the face. Both girls were okay at the end, but a member of the estate showed up with a security guard to take them home. Gerald didn't have much time left. I don't think the security guard came because it was dangerous. He came because they needed to come home because Gerald wasn't doing well.
He didn't tell them that.
No.
He just said, we need
Well,
to go.
somebody from the estate showed up and was telling the security guard, I need to find these girls.
Yeah.
I need to get them out of here.
Yes. And so they didn't have very much time left. He passed 20 minutes before they arrived. The next morning, Cosmo came to the house and apologized, but Laura was distraught. She had become really close with Gerald and taking care of him. It was
She called him her best friend.
Yeah, it was her best friend. Laura very distraught and didn't want anything to do with him or his music. She was pissed. She was mad that
It's your
she
fault.
missed. Yeah, I didn't get to spend the last minutes with her grandpa because of your concert. And so she's kind of bitter, has this resentment against him. So Margaret goes and meets with him alone. And that's how she met Cosmo.
Which is so
Face to
crazy
face.
because you're a famous family, and the singer of the concert that you attended came to pay his respects.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
not a normal life.
And they do when they talk. I think there's a little bit of a spark, and he's kind of like, come back to the show. Come
Yeah.
again. I want to see you. So Hayden and Alice that night head to a diner for dinner again. Hayden brings up Margaret, but without giving specifics, says he and Alice are having different experiences. They end up alone, kissing, and slowly stripping again.
It gets a little further every time.
Every time,
Just
a
a
little
little bit.
more.
And I will say that I was listening, and I was like, every time I jumped in my car, the story would start. And this really steamy scene came on as I was driving to work. And I was like, this is way too much for me to be listening to at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
How I
Which
feel
it's
about
not-
a lot of our
Yes.
a lot of the books that we read.
And it's good smut, right? Like
this
This
is
one
not,
was good. This
it's
one was good.
pure. It feels like
It goes along with the story and it's not dirty.
It's
It is well written.
Just
smut.
enough for you to know exactly
it's
what's
very
happening.
much so lovely, rather than
Lovely.
like
Than just dirty.
fucking.
They're making love.
Yeah, it's definitely more romantic for sure. Later, they're trying to work on separate couches, but end up making out and groping each other. They have some moments of heavy petting. Alice asks him to tell her something no one knows about him, and he says he's in love with her. Oh, and she's not allowed to say it back.
He tells her, like, don't say it right now. Wait until the end. If
Yeah.
that's how you feel.
Yeah.
Here, I wanted to tell him why. Why are you doing that? You've been so courteous and such a gentleman this whole time, and now you're about to pour your whole heart out, and you won't allow her to do the same. That's
Yes.
rude.
Because he
Yeah,
feels, I think
I
she
agree,
makes a,
though.
but he makes a note that because she's so bubbly, sometimes it comes off as disingenuous. Like he doesn't know if she's just saying something because she's in the moment and she might feel it right now, but it's not like her true feeling for
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't
Or it's going
want
to change.
that.
Something's going to change if.
Yeah.
If I get this job,
Yes.
Which now makes me think I'm a typically bubbly person. Do people think I'm disingenuous because
Yeah,
I'm
all the time.
always happy?
Just
I
kidding.
don't think you're disingenuous.
Okay, good.
Because you do have moments of
Don't cry.
There's that. But you also will take an opposing stance. You're not just always going with whatever
Okay.
somebody's saying.
All right, good. I like that about myself, maybe.
I am also pretty positive and bubbly, and most of the time I'm fake. So actually, I get it.
Now I
But you're
know.
not. Like you will stand on your own
Yeah.
with something you don't agree
I'm
with.
not
So
afraid to be a bitch.
Yeah. I live in the bitch zone.
I live in bitch zone.
I do not like to be a bitch, but and sometimes I have to probably.
I don't think I like to. It's definitely, but, and a lot of times if I feel like I am, I think I beat myself up after it. But I don't mind trying at least to set some boundary or being real.
like stand in your conviction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Alice runs into Cecil and he tells her to let Hayden know he found the picture he asked to see. Alice is curious, but saves her questions for Hayden. And he said he'll tell her why after. But he does make a comment at some point, you should see the picture. So back to Margaret. The story that the media was telling was Cosmo and Margaret, love at first sight. But her story is she stormed to meet him, ready to eviscerate him.
She was pissed because
Yeah.
Laura was so
So
upset.
Laura was so upset. You ruined the one night I finally got her to come out of her shell.
And your stupid concert and these heathens that went there.
Which is so
Yes.
funny because it's not his fault at all.
No.
No.
Misguided anger for sure.
His smile and coyness takes her off guard. She learns that he's only 23 and was impressed by him as he apologized for the concert. He invites her and Laura to another concert and they would be backstage in the wings. So don't worry about the crazies out front.
You'll be protected.
Yes. Margaret ends up going to the concert. She and Cosmo had a wild night. The next day, he sent her loads of flowers, like a whole lot of them, right?
Yeah,
Like-
he was like, I didn't know which kind you liked. So there was just different bouquets of like
Yes.
hundreds of
All
different
of them.
flowers. Yeah.
and she figured that was the end of it.
Yeah. We had
Laura
some
was
wild
sad.
one night stand. And that was it. Good times.
Laura was sad and homebound most days, and Cosmo sent Margaret short notes periodically. She saved them all, but she never replied to them. She did miss him. The letters stop, and 4 years later, Margaret runs into Cosmo at an after party.
At this point in the book, it's so much
They
of
keep
like
going back
the
and forth.
story, and then it's a short chapter, and then it
Yes.
jumps back into the story.
Yes. Like we're really getting into thick of Margaret's story.
Yeah.
And slowly backing out of like we know what Alice and
Hated
Yeah,
her.
we don't
Hayden
need,
are
we don't
up
need
to.
any details right now.
Back in the present, Cecil texts Alice the hippie photo, and Alice thinks he looks familiar, like deja vu, but can't place it.
I have a theory at this point
Okay.
that Cecil is Cosmo. His death was
Oh,
faked,
yes,
and
yes.
Cecil is Cosmo.
I was thinking like, oh, similar to how they sent away
Nina.
Nina.
Yeah, I thought Cosmo's
Maybe
death
we're
was
sending
faked.
away Cosmo and
and-
getting them out of the limelight a little
Yes,
bit.
and
Yeah.
Cecil was Cosmo.
Yes.
That's my theory
Yes.
right now.
Going back to the story, the media says Cosmo and Margaret's relationship caused a rift in the Ives family that couldn't be repaired. The story from her, the morning after the party, Cosmo came to the house. Margaret found him talking to Laura. She told her to fall in love and live her life. Laura gave her blessing because she was struggling with it because there was an attraction, but she couldn't. Her sister, who she absolutely adored, hated him. Margaret and Cosmo go on their first date and he proposes. Margaret says no, but they spend the next 2.5 weeks together. And then he asks again and she says yes. They married at the courthouse and her sister was a witness. It was just small and sweet and beautiful. Afterwards, they left for a month, 2 weeks in Nashville. Nashville and 2 weeks in Italy. When they returned, Laura was at a treatment center run by a controversial psychologist who she had been like communicating with and talking to.
Yeah, they've been sending letters back and forth to each other after she read one of his nutty books.
Yes. Honestly, I have been really into the documentaries about cults. And so this really captured my attention. I was like,
this is how it starts.
yes, that's how it started. She went there. Laura left a letter stating she needs space from the family to refrain from contacting her. Up until this point, we know that Laura doesn't love the limelight. She doesn't like all the attention. She's not into all the things. She's already kind of becoming a recluse. And now she's like, I need to get away from my family. And she goes to this treatment center.
But she's also been really depressed since Gerald passed. So
she's working on herself. And so they refrain from contacting her. Back in the present, Hayden and Alice spent the day together and he asks if she saw the picture. She doesn't understand what she's looking for. And he tells her she needs to before accepting the job.
Figure out what is in this old hippie picture before you take that job.
Which I get NDA and all the things, but I was like, just give her a clue. Like, what's happening here? So Margaret says the first year of marriage was the best and the worst of her life. She wrote to Laura, but never received a reply. The family ends up hiring a private investigator, and the verdict was that Laura was happy. The press tried to play Margaret and Cosmo were on a verge of divorce.
And then we jump into the last chunk, which is a lot of story and the last 5 chapters.
Oh, yeah. It does get real heavy.
So the story, so the media, Laura was a villain and an idiot.
Yeah, it's pretty much. Yeah.
Margaret's side was she finally wrote to her family, but she was demanding $4 million or she'll spill Gerald's secrets because she has his journals. And she's the only one who's ever read his journals. So Laura agreed to meet Margaret at a diner, and Margaret tried to get Laura to leave with her, but a man who like flashes a gun comes over and takes the bag of money and takes off. And he's like, you need to wait here for 10 minutes. Don't try to come after us. Don't try to do anything. I will take her out. I'll take you out. Take everybody out. The guy kind of walks ahead, and before she gets up to leave, Laura gives her a date, time, and location. That's all she says.
Like, she's clearly captured.
Yeah, she's captive.
The way she's behaving and the way she's talking to
she's
Margaret,
disheveled and
skinny.
Can
tell that she is not happy and she is not there on her own free will.
Yes.
And she's scared. Yeah. So
even when that guy comes up and talks to them or whatever, her whole attitude and everything changes.
Yeah, she just turns
quiet. Into a different person.
So the eyes contact the FBI. There was a raid at the place, date, and time, and Laura was taken severely underweight, strung out on stimulants. So Laura was watched round the clock and attempting to change the pace because she's not getting any better. Margaret and Cosmo bring her to Nashville. She was better, but not well. And then Cosmo starts losing his fame. They start talking shit about him in the media. Yeah, they not scheduling it as much. And Alice, she's pouring over, back in the present, she's pouring over her notes and sees a Dr. Cecil sketch testifying in Laura's court case. And again, the picture of the same man in a white coat outside Cosmo's hospital. She texts Hayden right away and he heads over and they try to work out if Cecil is connected to Margaret, if they know each other is on the island. And she just decides, like, I'm going to ask Margaret about this. I'm not going to second guess it. Hayden and Alice have a date night in his hotel room. They kiss, strip, and fool around. And in the middle of it, Alice finally says, I love you out loud. Then they jump back into the story. America's royal baby is on the way. So they're posting all this stuff about how Margaret's pregnant. Her story, Margaret wasn't pregnant. Fluctuating weight was the talk of the tabloids. And while she and Cosmo did want a baby, they were anxious about bringing a child into the world. On a Tuesday, Margaret felt nauseous and had crippling stomach pain, and Cosmo puts her in the car and the driver sped to the hospital. Their car was immediately being chased by paparazzi. The driver flew through an intersection and was T-boned basically by a truck. Margaret wakes up in the ambulance. Dr. Cecil met them at the hospital. Margaret was fine, but had an appendicitis. Cosmo was in surgery with brain swelling and a collapsed lung. Margaret went into surgery to address the appendicitis. When she woke up, her parents and Cecil were in the room and Cosmo was already gone.
So sad.
That was so sad because I cannot imagine losing my husband.
With or without kids, before, after.
Never.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it.
So during this whole time, Laura never came to see her and Margaret couldn't forgive her. She was like, I was vulnerable. I was lonely. I lost the love of my life and you never came to see me. So she stopped talking
And obviously
to her.
Laura was going through some stuff, but
because she was in a cult, basically. Yeah. She was being held hostage in a cult.
Yes.
So for 2 years after Cosmo's death, 2 years, Margaret lived in Nashville. Eventually, she moved back to California, and Cecil and Laura had fallen in love and married. And they moved to Europe.
Yeah, I think so.
And then they had a baby, and Margaret was crushed when she had the baby because she missed everything. She missed being there with her when she was pregnant. She missed being there with her sister. Laura and Cecil changed their last name and raised their daughter in Europe, Margaret was locked up in the California house for 20 years when a woman started coming over claiming to be her niece, Jody. So Jody left a card with a phone number and an address to a little island off of Georgia. So Alice asks if that's why she left the public eye to get her sister back, because her sister didn't want to be in the public eye. So Margaret states that the story is like, I'm not telling you that. It's for whoever wins. Alice preps all Thursday and Friday for her pitch, and Friday Hayden comes over with champagne. Hayden says his mom's name is Nicolette.
Because she bought a piece of artwork.
Yes,
in an art gallery that's what
It's
Margaret
called
does
the
now.
Nicolette
Is
was
she
the
is making all this art, and she had this small one in an art gallery.
Yeah, because she wanted.
And
She was like, "This one's beautiful," and the lady's like, "Oh yeah, but it's
$10,000 or
like get
something.
myself to drop the price." And she's like, "How much is it?" And so I think she tells her it's like something crazy, and she's like, "Oh, never mind. You have something smaller."
Yeah, by the same artist.
Yeah.
and
It
they
was
know
like
her.
$250 or $500,
Yeah.
and she's
Yeah.
like, I'll
And
do
it's
that
called
one.
the Nicolette, and so she feels inspired because it's
part of Margaret's story.
yes, and the person you would bend over backwards for, call it Nicolette.
So Hayden says his mom's name is Nicolette. She was adopted, and the agency said it would be best for her to keep her name. Alice is panicked, and Hayden worries for her.
When this started
I know.
happening, when he's like, I've never met anyone else that like
Spells
spells
it that
it
way.
like that.
Yeah.
It's my mom's name. Didn't I tell you? I was like, oh my God.
And then she's like, yeah, my mom was adopted. I was like, no.
I
No
thought
freaking way.
from the beginning that Margaret was Hayden's mom.
Oh, from the
That's
beginning
what I
you did?
thought. Yeah, I was
They're-
like, when
she's
can
not-
they
she's not
way
old
too
enough.
old to
They just
be
kept
his
saying
mom.
he was there, and she reached out to him, and all these things. So I was like, maybe it's her. He's her mom. Like just trying to understand why
Yeah.
she wanted. I
did
didn't
think there was
this.
a tie between them somehow, but I
Same.
did not think.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was grandma.
No.
So she asked what year his mom was born and then runs out of the house to her meeting with
She's
Margaret.
like, I can't talk. I've got to go meet with Margaret.
Yeah. In the car, she's piecing all this thing out together, but she's late. She's late, and Margaret's pissed.
I think she's even like sitting in front of the house.
Yeah, Margaret texts her like you're late, and she doesn't even respond.
Yeah.
She's just, I'm gonna put these
I
things
don't care
together.
because all this is blowing my damn
Yes.
mind.
And then she runs and doesn't even take
Yeah.
her shoes off. She
She
just
busts into her
bursts
house.
into the house.
yes.
And Hayden is her grandson. She was pregnant at the time of the accident, and after having her, knew she couldn't keep her safe.
Her appendicitis
Was
Was a
actually
baby.
her
Was a
being
baby.
pregnant. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So Margaret tells her there was never a book. Whew.
I'd be
Again,
so
I-
pissed.
Oh, I know.
Alice was very
Yeah,
pissed.
she was rightly so. Alice was only brought in to make Hayden want the job because he was asked several times before. And unless it was like a competitive thing where like, this is an exclusive and I'm going to win this, he didn't want anything to do with it. And Hayden has no idea who Margaret is.
And because Margaret knew it was her only way to get him there so she could get to know him.
Yeah. So Margaret admits to hiring an investigator after Nicolette turned 18. Slowly after that, she sold Ives Media and donated the majority of the money. She saw like she's happy, she's, doing well in her life. Like I would just be a bomb to her life and I don't want to do that to her. Protecting her is me staying away. Mm-hmm. So Margaret wants Alice to write her story. Yeah, she's
we
like,
could
I
write a
didn't want it
different
at
story.
first, but I want it now.
Yeah.
And Margaret wants Alice to write her story and Alice is like, absolutely
You have
not.
to be honest. She basically has the same argument with her that Hayden was having with Alice about Alice's mother.
Yeah, being honest.
You have to talk to him.
She is adamant that Hayden and Nicolette should know the truth, and Margaret told her he had a chance to know her and he doesn't want it. She reminds Alice of the NDA. Like she starts getting nervous and
Because
is like,
she says he doesn't want anything to do with her.
yeah.
Because he denied the book.
Yes.
Yeah, he denied the
And
job offer.
So
Which
she's-
obviously we know it's because he's in love with
Yes.
Alice
Alice.
and doesn't want that conflict. He had a past where the girlfriend left him
after they both went for a promotion.
and he got it and she didn't. So
Yes.
he's got this past trauma about it. And so he goes and tells Margaret, I don't want the position.
He's trying to like prevent whatever happened in the past to happen again.
Yes.
Yeah, with Alice.
But Margaret just sees that he denied, I don't want to talk to you about your book. I want nothing to do with you. And now she's all emotional about it.
This is just a prime example of communication and how
Yes.
important it is because
Yes,
everybody
yes.
has their own assumption of what is happening.
Yes.
And there's so many stories colliding at once and
Yeah.
nobody's telling anything about each other.
So in a kind of a last-ditch effort to stall Alice, Margaret reminds her of the NDA that she signed, and Alice turns to leave, and Margaret says, if you go, there's no turning back, and she walks out.
She even says the NDA includes what she had said before. It includes Hayden. You cannot talk about this.
Yeah. So Alice cries all the way home. She starts packing, and then Hayden shows up at the door. She starts a fight. He shows up with champagne. He's like, I know you were supposed to buy it, but I bought it.
He thinks that she's going to know that she won the book.
Yeah. And
Without
he's
knowing that
congratulating.
he actually gave it up.
Yeah.
Right.
She starts a fight. Her anger's wrongly placed again, and Hayden doesn't understand. Alice asks him to leave. After what feels like hours slumped on the floor crying, she texts her mom, "Is it okay if I come home? I'm not well." And she gets a one-word response. Sure.
There were so many emotions and frustrations in this section of the book. I was mad at her for not giving Hayden even like a little bit of there's more to this story and I think you need to go talk to Margaret. Instead, she just gives him nothing and he's like, why are you mad at me? Like, what happens? And she blames it on the fact that he gave up the book, right? And so then he's like, oh, okay.
I feel like there are so many emotions, and I thought she's in such a pickle.
Yes.
I am absolutely in love with this man that I was willing to give up my life in California for, potentially, right? And then she's also realizing that, like, Margaret is being dumb. Talk to him. And I can't talk to him because of this stupid NDA that I signed about a book that wasn't even real.
Yes.
And I'm having this argument with Margaret, and Hayden's telling me I should be doing the same thing with my mom. And maybe he's right because now I see it. Like,
Yes.
there is so much that
It
just,
just
like,
blows up right here.
Yes.
But I was so mad at her. I know that she was bound by this NDA. I know that. But tell him something so that you
Right.
could not the
I
details.
can't talk about why I'm upset with
yes. Yes. We signed an NDA and I can't tell you. So maybe you need to go where the NDA originates from to
Yes.
find it out.
Yeah.
Is-
So you do the research.
Yeah, you
Because
do-
now I have to walk away.
Just like you said,
Come
look at
find
Cecil's
me.
picture. Go look at the NDA and the person who wrote it.
Yeah.
Go talk to that person. Why not? Why just not say something? Instead, she just blows
I think she
it up.
truly believed it wasn't her place, and I agree.
I agree
It's
it
totally
wasn't.
not her place.
But
I can't even hint
they
at it
loved
because
each
if I
other.
I know, and that's why I think it's almost, it kind of is beautiful. She was willing to sacrifice that because either way, she was in a bad place. She was
Yeah.
either going to have to keep this secret from him, and she couldn't, or she was going to have to tell him and totally
Maybe
take
get
away
sued.
get sued, but also blow up his life.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is a very difficult
Yes.
situation.
And so she just
then
ran from it.
I have this, yes, then she runs. And then I have more emotions when she says, Mom, I'm not in a good place. Can I come? And her mom says, Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
Say something.
I'm coming to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
where
couldn't
are you? I'll come
understand.
get you.
Yeah. Like, what do you need?
Yes.
You can always come home.
Yes,
Yes.
the vulnerability of to being self-aware to say, look, I am struggling.
Yes.
And then to admit it to your parent and they just go, okay.
So she goes home, and after sleeping for 3 days, her mom just kind of walks up to her and is like, if you're going to be here, you need to work. So get your ass outside and get in the garden.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
And after 5 days of planting and cooking meals alongside her
It's
mom.
like garden therapy.
Yeah. Her mom finally asked, like, are you going to tell me what's going
Yes.
on? And she looks at her mom and was like, do you even want me to tell you what's going on?
She has this epiphany. I never really stick up or speak up. Now I just have to.
I don't want any of this.
Yes. Although I was finally like, about time that you freaking ask your daughter what's going on.
Yeah.
It's been 5 days. It took you that long to say, hey, are you actually going to tell me? Like, I would have been like the second
You've
you
been
walked
locked
in.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? Let's talk about it. How can I help?
Yeah.
No,
I
she
would have
let
been
her
in the car like,
sleep
do you
for-
need me to come get you?
She would have loved her sleep for 5 days. Gave her space, I guess.
Yeah. But then
I
she
definitely wouldn't have waited 5 days. I
No.
feel like I might have been like, I know you need your space. I'm going to give you your space. But after like 24 hours even, hey, honey.
here's some tea.
Are we
Or
going to
just constantly like, I'm just checking on you. I know you need your space when you're here ready to talk.
I'm here.
Now? You want me to
You wanna
can I
talk
now?
In 30 minutes, I come back.
Yeah, exactly.
I need to know. Do I need to murder someone?
Yeah. Give me their social. Yeah. I'll figure it out. I got the rest.
So she explodes on her mom at that point, asking why her mom can't respect her, love her, or let her belong to the family. Then her mom's like, oh, honey, you belong.
It's almost like she's like, what? You felt that way this whole time?
I feel like
and
she
her
was caught
mom-
off guard.
Yes.
A
I don't
little
think
bit, but she also felt it because she's like, you know, when you were little, you were glued to my
She
hips.
did say that, yeah.
She understands where the feeling's coming from, but I don't think she realized.
Or how to fix. She doesn't know what to do.
Yes.
Because she's like, when you got to be a teenager, like your dad understood you.
Yes.
And I
They
had,
just had the
no
bond.
idea where you were coming from. And I don't know how to fix that. I
Right.
don't
and
know
then
how
I
to
felt
be
bad for the mom because I thought that's a warranted feeling.
Right. Yeah.
But
Like,
it
you're
also-
not trying to be a shitty mom. You
No.
just, I don't connect
I
with
don't
with you,
know how
and I don't know how to do it.
But
Yeah.
I don't think I would ever with my kids get to a point where I just back off because I don't know how to talk to you.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't have an adult child or even a teenager child. I don't know what I will be like or what that would be like to just not relate or understand how to have a conversation. I do think I would try.
Yeah, and
I would like
think
to
the
believe I would
relationship
be like,
might
I'm going to figure it out.
We're going to put the effort in, but the
Yeah.
relationship might be strained, and there will be, like, you will feel that the connection isn't necessarily
Yeah.
there. Not that you don't love them, not that you don't want to be their parent, not that you don't want any of that, but the connection is definitely not there, and you'll feel it, I think.
Well, I think especially because she was able to kind of rely on dad,
And then
like
he
on her
wasn't there.
husband.
Yeah.
On her husband to fulfill that part of, I don't know how to do this and you do it really well. Can
We're
you
a
talk?
partnership,
Yeah,
so
we're a
you do
partnership.
that
You get to be
yes.
that part. You get to fill that void.
Yes.
And when he was gone, it was like, I haven't been practicing. I haven't figured
yeah.
it out.
She lost a part of her in the
Yes.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alice's mom agrees to tell her everything that she wants to know. And they record themselves telling stories. They kind of bond over missing their dad or husband and dad. And after talking to her mom for days and recording all these stories, she writes a letter. And as she finishes the letter, her friends bust into her room because her mom invited them over. All her
Yeah.
friends from her group chat. She tells her friends what she's allowed to because of the NDA. They work in the garden, and Alice tells them that she decides what she wants to do with her life. She wants to write a biography about her parents. She wants to write about love. And her friends head back home. They were just there for a few days, like a weekend. But while they're there, they get her mom to order pizza, which
Yes.
she never, ever does. 5 weeks later, she gets her mom to order pizza again. And
Yes.
she's like, maybe it was good. Maybe we could do this on a monthly basis.
Yeah. She's like, I want to do it that often,
Yes.
but I'm willing to do it.
Yeah. So Alice goes to answer the door thinking it's pizza, and she finds Hayden holding the letter she mailed to Margaret. Margaret sent it to him with her own explanation, and he presses her if it's true that she loves him. That's all he got from it. Do you love me?
Yeah, there was so much
There's
in
all
there to
kinds of
unpack.
stuff in
yeah,
there.
that's all he cared about
Yes.
was, is this true? Do you love me? He says he never wants to be apart from her again. She tells him that she's staying in Georgia for a while, and his response is, I hear that Atlanta is a great place for music
I
journalism.
love that. There's this whole little part.
Yeah, it was very sweet. Like, don't make excuses. I will make it work. I want to
Yeah.
be with you. Then it jumps back into the last part of the story. So the news is saying Pulitzer Prize winner and celebrity columnist team up to write Margaret Ives' biography.
Which was a suggestion at one point in the story, was she tells him or he tells her, I can't remember,
That they
like,
can
what
do
if
it
we do it
together.
together?
Yeah.
And they said, I don't know if they turn it down or they say it's a bad idea or whatever, but it was a suggestion at the
Yeah.
like a little while before this.
So Margaret's story, they wrote a love story. Margaret is moving slower these days, but they tell her whole truth in their story. Nicolette is eager to learn about her birth mother, and Hayden becomes a man that sends her flowers and sings to her pregnant belly.
Oh.
They don't decide on a name until they're en route to the hospital. It's a girl, Laura Grace Anderson Scott, because Grace is Margaret's middle name. And after 4 months, Alice sits down with all of her notes from her mom, collected over the years, and writes down everything for her daughter, the good, the bad, and everything in between.
I love the last part, which you kind of said right there. She's going to tell her daughter everything, the
Yeah.
good and bad, the magic and curses, all the blues and grays right alongside the reds and golds. I tell her the story about a love so powerful it remade the world for her. I welcome her to this great, big, beautiful life. I was definitely crying.
I cried too. I almost cried reading my notes, and I shortened it and made it less.
I know. Oh my gosh. It was a really beautiful way to end it.
It was. It was.
It's called A Great Big Beautiful Life. It's just
And
such
it
a
was just-
perfect title. And
Yes, it was great.
Has to be like an Emily Henry thing that she does, because Funny Story ended the same way.
Oh, it's a funny story.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's
Oh.
like how she does it. That's what her thing is, right?
Oh.
It has to be, because she ended
Only way
both
to
the
know
same
is
way.
to read more.
So we review books on a 3-shot system. 1 shot, I'm not coming back for more. 2 shots, it's good enough for another, but not worth the hangover. And 3 shots, it got me up. Every time we laugh at it, this is stupid. I'm giving it 3 shots. It's
wanna know what
quite
you
possibly one of my favorite books I've read this year. And I just loved every bit of it so very much. After the book was over, I had the physical book in my hand and I was reading it, right? And when it was over, I like hugged it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I think I have decided I really do like Emily Henry and her writing. And I've only read 2 books now, but both books, I think I ended feeling really just good. And I liked it. I think I liked it better than Funny Stories. I know.
Well,
Go ahead, spill it.
3 shots.
Wow!
I really liked this one. I really liked it. No, I agree. I think this was one of my favorite stories that we've read so far.
Wow.
Top 3 of our TBR.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
really liked it. There was such a variety of dynamics that made you so intrigued with the story. It wasn't just a love story. It wasn't just a story about a journalist trying to do a job. It was a story about family, a story about love, a story about a mother's love, a story,
Yes.
there was so much that was packed into this, and she wrote it so beautifully.
She did so good.
Funny Story was great, and I liked this one a lot. So great job, Emily.
Go, Emily.
My turn.
Yeah.
Ready for
The
this?
pressure.
I gave it 1 shot. I'm just kidding. No, I gave it 3 shots.
We're at 3, a triple 3-shotter.
We haven't had this in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
I think Night Watching was the
Was
last one. We gave
yeah.
3 shots to.
But I do really like, this is our second Emily Henry. I want to read more, but I really like her writing.
Me
Yes.
too.
I think she does a really good job of putting witty phrases, and I actually laugh out loud when I'm reading her books.
Yeah.
But just like in Funny Story, where she hid underlining major issues
Yes.
into her book
Yes.
without them being predominant and taking away from the
Yes.
love story.
Yeah.
So
You
like the
still
mom's
felt-
depression
Yeah.
and losing a parent
Right.
and dealing
Yeah.
with a parent that you're not close to and all of the
Yes.
things.
Yes.
Yes.
I also listened to this and then listened to another one we're gonna talk about. I will say, having done it so close together, Emily Henry's writing is so good.
Yes.
compared.
Yeah, she's a
when
very
you
good
when you
writer.
like compare it to another book, and I'm listening to it also, it's just she's a great writer because
She is.
she put shame to the other person after.
Lord.
Yeah, it was not the best. I was like, wow, that is
Yeah,
a
right?
stark difference in writing style.
Good job, Emily Henry. All right, well, that's a wrap on this episode of Literature on the Rocks. Thanks for listening to our deep dive of Great Big Beautiful Life. And make sure you check out our prompts that are posted already on the website. If you had as much fun as we did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're here for you every Wednesday.
Yep. And while you're at it, rate and review us. It helps other book nerds and booze lovers find us. And let's be real, we love reading your feedback almost as much as our books.
And then you can keep the conversation going by following us on our social media at Lit on the Rocks Pod on Instagram and TikTok, or on our website, literatureontherocks.com.
Until next time, may your TBR be long and your cocktails be strong. Cheers.
Toodaloo.
Bye.